Sejun thought protecting Hajin would mean beating up a few school thugs. Instead, he got dragged into a world where broken teenagers were turned into entertainment for rich psychopaths hiding behind screens. A world where underground fights were uploaded like pay-per-view events, where drugged fighters kept moving even after their bodies should have collapsed, where people like Director Kim sat in the shadows treating trauma like a business model. And the deeper Sejun went into that world, the more dangerous he became too, because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. Every fight changed him. Every injury hardened him. Every new opponent forced him to evolve faster just to survive. What started as one kid trying to protect his childhood friend was slowly turning into a war against an underground system built on fear, manipulation, and violence. And by the end of this arc, the boy from Chapter 1 is basically gone. Sejun thought Hajin was about to get attacked again, and the second he heard her name, he ran without even thinking. No jacket, no plan, nothing. Because after everything that already happened to her, he knew one thing for sure. If that psycho got near her again, somebody was getting hurt. The crazy part is Hajin had no idea any of this was happening. She was casually walking home with her dad, smiling, talking normally, completely unaware that Sejun was sprinting across the city, looking like he was ready to kill someone. And the moment she finally picks up the phone, Sejun just freezes. The pressure disappears for a second. She's safe. But his expression doesn't fully relax, because deep down, he already knows this isn't over. Back at the apartment complex, Jung-hyeon is still lurking around like a damn stalker, smoking outside, watching the building, memorizing where Hajin lives. And the worst part? He didn't find this place by himself. Director Kim gave him the information. That calm bastard is still sitting in the background moving pieces around, while everyone else bleeds for it. Jung-hyeon keeps ranting about revenge, talking about how his life got ruined because of Hajin and Sejun, but the entire time Director Kim barely reacts. He just listens quietly, like he's studying him, like he already knows exactly how broken this guy is. Then everything changes when Jung-hyeon finally leaves the building and runs directly into Sejun. The panel pacing here is so good. No dramatic speech, no long build-up. They just lock eyes for 1 second, and Sejun instantly swings. The hit lands so fast Jung-hyeon barely has time to react, before Sejun is already grabbing him and driving him backward. And this fight immediately feels different from Sejun's earlier fights. Jung-hyeon isn't some random school bully. The second he starts moving, Sejun realizes this guy actually knows how to fight. His kicks are sharp. Even his posture feels trained. Sejun tries to pressure him aggressively, but Jung-hyeon starts creating distance with low kicks and counters, forcing Sejun to slow down. For the first time in a while, Sejun can't just overwhelm someone through raw aggression, and honestly, that pisses him off even more. Jung-hyeon keeps talking shit about Hajin, trying to provoke him emotionally, but Sejun's face barely changes anymore. That's one of the biggest differences in this batch. Earlier, Sejun used to completely lose control when Hajin got mentioned. Now he still gets angry, but he's learning how to weaponize it. The moment Jung-hyeon lifts his leg again, Sejun suddenly changes levels and slams a dirty shot straight into his groin. No hesitation, no sportsmanship, just survival. Jung-hyeon folds instantly, and Sejun keeps attacking before he can recover. But even while he's winning, Sejun notices something terrifying. This guy's movement is still dangerous. Even hurt, Jung-hyeon's timing is clean enough to keep creating openings. At one point, Sejun even compares him to Dohyun and realizes something important. Dohyun's punches are still faster, still heavier, which means Sejun isn't even close to reaching the level of real trained fighters yet. That realization hangs over the entire fight, because Sejun's improving fast, but now he's finally seeing how deep the gap actually goes. The fight keeps getting uglier, until Detective Na suddenly arrives and shuts the whole thing down. And honestly, the atmosphere changes immediately, because unlike everybody else in this story, Detective Na doesn't feel emotional. He feels tired, like he's watching another kid slowly destroy himself and already knows how this ends. He pulls Sejun aside and warns him directly. If he keeps handling things this way, eventually the police are going to have to stop him too. And Sejun understands that, but the look on his face says something worse. He's already accepted it. That's what makes this version of Sejun dangerous. He's not fighting because he enjoys violence. He genuinely thinks this is the only way left to protect the people around him. After the fight finally ends, Sejun goes home bruised up and exhausted, replaying everything in his head. Jung-hyeon wasn't stronger physically, but he was experienced, calm, technical, and for the first time, Sejun realizes instinct alone isn't going to carry him anymore. He needs to evolve. The story slows down after this, but not in a bad way. This is the first time in a while where the series lets the characters breathe. Hajin drags Sejun around taking selfies, teasing him non-stop, while he stands there looking emotionally dead inside half the time. And honestly, these scenes matter a lot, because the story keeps reminding you what Sejun is actually fighting for. Not revenge, not ego. Moments where Hajin can laugh without looking over her shoulder. But even during the softer scenes, Sejun's thoughts never fully relax. He keeps thinking about stronger enemies, about how close things came to getting worse, about how next time he might not be fast enough. Then the series hits another huge turning point. Sejun walks into the gym and asks Dohyun to teach him boxing, and Dohyun immediately realizes he's serious. The training scenes after this are honestly some of the best progression content in the series because they feel grounded. No magical training montage, no overnight transformation. Sejun starts with basic jump rope drills and looks absolutely miserable. His rhythm is garbage. His footwork keeps breaking. His shoulders tighten up constantly, but Dohyun doesn't let him quit. Because boxing isn't just punching harder. It's rhythm, breathing, balance, distance. The ability to stay calm while somebody's trying to cave your face in. And slowly, Sejun starts understanding that. There's one scene where Dohyun explains that Sejun keeps forcing fights emotionally instead of controlling their pace. That line basically summarizes Sejun's entire character up to this point. He survives fights through stubbornness. Now he's learning how to think during them. At the same time, Hajin finally returns to the dojo, and the atmosphere completely explodes. Everybody rushes her at once. People are yelling, hugging her, acting dramatic as hell. It's chaotic in the best way possible. And right in the middle of all this comedy, another detail slips in quietly. The dojo owner used to be a professional boxer, not just some old gym guy, an actual respected fighter. Even Dohyun starts fanboying over him immediately. That detail adds a lot to the gym itself. This place isn't just where Sejun learned self-defense anymore. It's full of people who already survived violent lives before him. Later, when Sejun walks Hajin home, the series slips back into emotional tension again. Hajin keeps hugging other people earlier, and Sejun gets visibly jealous without even trying to hide it. And Hajin notices instantly. She teases him the entire walk home, while Sejun tries to act like he doesn't care. The expressions here carry the whole scene. Neither of them officially says anything, but at this point everybody already knows. Then the story shifts again. Back to violence. Back to pressure. Because Sejun finally decides on a new strategy. Instead of charging directly at monsters stronger than him, he's going to level up step by step, fight weaker opponents, test techniques, build experience. And honestly, this is the smartest decision he's made so far. The next fights are smaller, but they matter a lot because you can physically see Sejun changing. Earlier, Sejun fought like somebody drowning. Now he's starting to control distance. He's stepping backward before counters, using punches to interrupt movement, watching shoulders and hips before attacks come out. There's even a point where weaker fighters start getting frustrated because they can't force him into reckless exchanges anymore. That's huge, because composure is becoming his real weapon, not strength, not rage, composure. Still, Dohyun keeps reminding him of the truth. Even after all this training, Jung-hyeon is still dangerous, Sejun still isn't ready, and Sejun knows it too. But he also knows something worse. If he waits too long, Hajin could become a target again. That pressure keeps building underneath every chapter. Even during training, even during comedy scenes, everything in this arc feels temporary, like violence is always waiting right around the corner. Then the final chapter turns the tension all the way back up. Hajin's parents are escorting her around carefully now. The family finally understands the danger surrounding her. And from a distance, Jung-hyeon is still watching, still obsessed, still looking for another opening. The visual framing here is creepy as hell. He doesn't even feel human anymore, just bitter, paranoid, pathetic. But before he can get any closer, Detective Na suddenly spots him and starts chasing him through the streets. And this sequence moves fast. Jung-hyeon starts panicking immediately because for the first time, real consequences are finally catching up to him. He runs, turns corners, keeps looking over his shoulder. Then a car suddenly pulls up beside him. At first it almost looks like a rescue, until he gets dragged inside. And the second Jung-hyeon sees who's sitting there, the fear completely changes. It's Jason. Calm, silent. No yelling, no dramatic threats, which honestly makes it way scarier. Jason looks at him like he's deciding whether this kid deserves to keep breathing. Then he calmly says he's debating two options: whether Jung-hyeon is young enough to fix his life, or whether he should just tear him apart and burn him for being trash. And the look on Jung-hyeon's face says everything. Because after all the chaos he caused, he just realized Sejun was never the scariest person in this story. Jason didn't beat Jung-hyeon with fists. He broke him with fear. The chapter opens inside that car from the last cliffhanger, and the atmosphere is immediately suffocating. Jung-hyeon's trapped in the back seat sweating bullets, while Jason sits there completely calm holding an axe, like this is just another normal conversation for him. No yelling, no dramatic threats, which honestly makes it worse, because Jason never looks emotional, he looks certain. Jung-hyeon keeps trying to talk his way out of it, but Jason barely reacts. He just tells him one thing: stay away from Hajin. That's it. Simple, cold. And the whole time Jung-hyeon's eyes keep shaking, because he realizes this guy isn't bluffing at all. Then Jason suddenly lets him go. For 1 second Jung-hyeon thinks he survived. Then he starts running, and Jason hurls the axe straight into his leg from behind. That panel is brutal. No flashy action pose, no cool one-liner, just raw pain and panic. Jung-hyeon collapses screaming, while Jason calmly walks away like he already made his point. And honestly, this moment changes the power balance of the story, because up until now Sejun felt dangerous because he was emotional. Jason feels dangerous because he isn't. Later that night, Jung-hyeon limps home bleeding, exhausted, completely humiliated. His teacher finds him and immediately tries helping him, but he snaps at her almost instantly. The apartment scenes here are uncomfortable in a very grounded way. Nothing feels exaggerated. It just feels like years of anger, finally rotting somebody from the inside. The teacher keeps trying to talk to him like there's still something left to save, but Jung-hyeon's face says he stopped believing in adults a long time ago. As the argument escalates, pieces of his past start slipping out. Abusive father, violence at home, people ignoring the signs, learning how to fight because fear was the only thing he understood anymore. And for a second, you almost feel bad for him. Then he raises his hand toward his teacher, and Sejun grabs his wrist before he can touch her. The panel framing here is so good. Jung-hyeon's shocked expression, the teacher frozen in place, Sejun standing there bruised and exhausted, like he hasn't slept properly in days. Then Sejun calmly tells him if he can't control his hands, he'll break them himself. No screaming, no dramatic rage, just quiet certainty. And that honestly feels scarier than his earlier fights, because Sejun's changing too. The next chapter keeps the tension trapped inside that apartment. The teacher tries desperately to stop the fight from happening. And this scene matters because she isn't portrayed as stupid or naive. She genuinely wants Jung-hyeon to be rehabilitated instead of destroyed. But Sejun's already past that point mentally. He tells her people like Jung-hyeon keep hurting others because everyone keeps waiting for the right way to stop them. That line hits hard because you can tell Sejun hates thinking this way. But after everything that happened to Hajin, he genuinely believes violence might be the only thing predators understand. Jung-hyeon tries manipulating the situation after that. The second he realizes the teacher's protecting him, he starts acting weak, injured, pitiful. But Sejun sees right through it immediately. And then the fight starts again. Only this time, Jung-hyeon notices something's different almost instantly. Sejun's movement is cleaner now. His punches aren't wild anymore. He's stepping properly, controlling distance. Even his eyes look calmer during exchanges. Dohyun's training is already changing him. There's a really good sequence where Jung-hyeon tries throwing combinations, expecting Sejun to rush emotionally like before. But Sejun keeps interrupting him with straighter punches and tighter movement. It frustrates the hell out of him, and that frustration slowly starts exposing how mentally unstable Jung-hyeon actually is. The teacher keeps trying to stop things physically, even standing between them at one point. But Jung-hyeon finally explodes and starts screaming about how everyone abandoned him, how nobody helped him when he was getting beaten at home, how everybody suddenly cares now that he became dangerous. And honestly, the series handles this really carefully. It explains him, but it never excuses him. Because the second the teacher still reaches out to him emotionally, Jung-hyeon immediately weaponizes it and lashes out again. That's when Sejun finally snaps harder. The fight turns uglier after that. More personal, more desperate. Jung-hyeon starts throwing everything emotionally, but Sejun keeps staying composed enough to punish the openings. And, right when things look like they're ending, Jung-hyeon pulls out a knife. Everything changes immediately. The pacing slows down. The panels get tighter. Even Sejun's expression shifts because now this isn't a fight anymore. It's survival. One bad movement, and somebody dies. What I like here is the story doesn't pretend knife defense is cool or easy. Sejun's first instinct isn't, I can beat this guy. It's, this is bad. But Jung-hyeon starts threatening Hajin again, and that completely kills any chance of backing down. The knife exchanges feel messy and terrifying. Sejun keeps using distance, furniture, angles, anything he can to avoid getting cut directly. There's no superhero choreography here. Half the fight looks like two exhausted people desperately trying not to lose control. Then Sejun finally creates an opening, crashes into him full force, and slams him to the ground. The knife snaps away. And honestly, the scariest part comes after the fight. Because Sejun doesn't calm down. He pins Jung-hyeon there and starts interrogating him about Young-gon, about who hurt Hajin, about who's connected to the underground fights. And the way Sejun's face is drawn here feels different. Not emotional, not panicked, cold, like he's slowly becoming somebody who can hurt people without hesitating anymore. While all this is happening, Director Kim is watching through video footage like he's observing an experiment. That bastard barely even cares about the injuries. He's more interested in Sejun's growth, the sponsors, the reactions, the entertainment value. That reveal changes the entire atmosphere of the story, because Sejun thinks he's chasing revenge, but the underground system is already turning his pain into content. Then the next major piece enters the board, Young-gon, and immediately something feels wrong about him. The guy looks unstable, exhausted, half broken already. He's begging for another chance, while the underground handlers stand over him like they own him completely. Then the truth finally drops. They've been controlling him through drugs, heroin. The fights aren't just underground entertainment anymore. This entire thing is connected to narcotics, hidden sponsors, and rich freaks watching violence online for fun. And things start feeling way darker after that. The story takes a breath after the chaos and shifts into the hospital aftermath. Sejun's injured. Jung-hyeon's destroyed. The teacher looks emotionally exhausted. And this section honestly hurts more than the fights, because she finally explains what happened to Jung-hyeon properly. His father abused him constantly. Nobody stepped in early enough. He learned fighting to survive. Then some adult outside school found him at his weakest point and fed all that anger instead of helping him heal. That's where Director Kim's influence starts becoming terrifying. He doesn't create violence from nothing. He finds broken people and gives them permission to become worse. The hospital atmosphere feels heavy the entire time. White lighting, bandages, quiet conversations. Nobody really wins here. Then, the story suddenly shifts back into lighter territory for a second, when Sejun and Hajin are walking together outside school. And honestly, these scenes matter a lot, because they remind you these are still teenagers underneath all this underground violence. A red-haired girl approaches Sejun trying to flirt with him, but Hajin instantly steps between them and casually says he's taken. Sejun freezes. The girl freezes. Even Hajin looks slightly embarrassed after realizing what she just implied. And the funniest part is she immediately starts acting defensive about it afterward, while Sejun just stares at her completely confused. But underneath the comedy, there's another important detail. That girl isn't random. She's connected to Sang-soo, the next monster waiting in the underground scene. She's the brains, he's the muscle. And the story quietly introduces them before things spiral again later. Then, the final chapter starts exposing how deep this underground system really goes. Jason tracks down information connected to the dark web fight footage, and every reveal just gets uglier. These fights are being uploaded, sold, watched by rich anonymous viewers looking for violent entertainment, and the people running it treat fighters like disposable products, especially Young-gon. The guy's practically begging for drugs while the underground handlers manipulate him with promises and pressure. They don't care if he destroys himself, as long as he keeps fighting, as long as viewers keep watching, as long as the money keeps moving. And while all this darkness keeps spreading behind the scenes, Sejun's still training. Jason forces Dohyun into grappling practice, and the contrast is actually great because Dohyun's boxing confidence disappears immediately once Jiu-Jitsu gets involved. The moment grips and positioning enter the equation, he starts getting controlled badly. But this training section isn't filler, it's setup, because Jason explains something important. Real fights aren't always clean, and if Sejun's going deeper into underground violence, he needs to understand no-gi grappling too. That's when Jason finally mentions the next name, Sang-soo, an expert in no-gi jiu-jitsu, one of the strongest fighters left in the underground scene. And the atmosphere changes immediately, because after everything Sejun just survived, the next opponent isn't some emotional wreck with a knife. It's somebody calm, technical, experienced, which honestly might be even worse. The underground fights were already dangerous, but now Sejun was about to face somebody with almost no weaknesses. Not some emotional wreck with a knife, not some loud bully trying to act tough, an actual athlete, a real fighter. And the worst part? Even Jason looks serious talking about him. The chapter opens with Sang-soo's underground profile being pulled up, and the atmosphere changes immediately. The stats alone make him feel different from everyone Sejun fought before. Bigger frame, real wrestling background, no-gi jiu-jitsu experience, strength, conditioning. The guy doesn't look like some random delinquent dragged into violence. He looks built for it. Jason stares at the profile quietly, before finally admitting something Sejun probably didn't want to hear. This guy doesn't really have an obvious weakness. That line hangs in the air for a second, because up until now, every opponent had something Sejun could exploit. Emotional instability, bad habits, overconfidence, fear. But Sang-soo, he's disciplined, and that honestly makes him scarier. Even the dojo owner backs it up. He explains that Sang-soo used to compete seriously before getting swallowed into the underground scene. So this isn't just some thug pretending to fight. This guy already had talent before the criminal world got a hold of him. Then the story shifts toward the red-haired girl from earlier, Kang Ji-yeon. And right away you can tell her relationship with Sang-soo is complicated as hell. She talks about him possessively, emotionally, like she owns part of him. But underneath that attachment there's also greed mixed in. Money, attention, status. She wants Sang-soo to keep climbing because every victory pulls her higher too. And the underground side knows exactly how to manipulate that. Nobody threatens her directly. They just start poking at her insecurities little by little. What if Sang-soo doesn't actually need her anymore? What if Sejun ruins everything? What if Hajin becomes another emotional weakness standing in the way? The expressions here do most of the work. Ji-yeon keeps trying to act calm, but every mention of Sang-soo hits her immediately. Her smile tightens. Her posture changes. You can literally see the paranoia building panel by panel. While Sejun's relaxing for the first time all chapter, Ji-yeon's already moving. She isolates Hajin alone afterward, and the mood shifts immediately. At first, Ji-yeon acts casual, smiling, talking softly, almost friendly, but the second Hajin stops reacting the way she wants, the hostility starts leaking out fast. The panel framing here is really good. Ji-yeon keeps leaning into Hajin's space, while Hajin stays guarded but calm, and the more composed Hajin looks, the more irritated Ji-yeon becomes. She starts bringing up Sejun constantly, mocking Hajin, acting like she's weak, like she's dragging everyone around her into violence. And honestly, this confrontation says a lot about Ji-yeon as a character. She keeps pretending she's smarter than everybody else, but most of her actions are emotional panic disguised as confidence. The chapter after this hits way harder emotionally, because the story suddenly flashes back to Sejun and Hajin as kids. Young Hajin's getting isolated by other children, over stupid rumors and appearance stuff. And what makes these scenes work is how small everything feels. Nobody's throwing huge dramatic punches. Nobody's acting cartoonishly evil. It's just that quiet loneliness kids feel when they realize nobody's stepping in for them. Hajin keeps trying to act okay, trying to smile through it. And then little Sejun awkwardly steps in. Not heroically, not confidently. He just sees somebody alone and decides he doesn't want her staying alone anymore. That's where everything started. Not romance, not attraction, recognition. Two lonely kids slowly becoming each other's safe place. The black background narration around these flashbacks makes them feel almost painful compared to the present timeline because now both of them are trapped in a world filled with violence they never asked for. Then the story rips all that warmth away and throws us right back into the present. Ji-yeon finally snaps. She attacks Hajin directly, screaming about Sang-soo, Sejun, and how everything's being ruined because of her. And this scene gets ugly fast. Hajin's not a trained fighter like Sejun. She's getting overwhelmed physically almost immediately. Jiyeon keeps hitting her while ranting emotionally, and the scariest part is how unstable she looks now compared to her earlier calm act. The underground side completely poisoned her thinking. Every insecurity, every obsession, every fear. They just kept feeding it until she exploded. But even while Hajin's getting hurt, the narration inside her head shifts towards Sejun, and this part matters a lot. Because Hajin never blames him for the danger around them. Not once. Instead, she starts thinking about how Sejun's always protected her since they were little. How he keeps carrying everything alone. How he probably blames himself constantly already. Then Sejun finally arrives. The second he sees Hajin hurt, his entire expression changes. And instead of immediately chasing Jiyeon, he kneels beside Hajin first. That detail says everything about him. He's furious, but Hajin matters more than revenge in that moment. He starts comforting her while she's shaking on the ground, telling her he'd never blame her for his choices. Never, no matter what happens. And while Sejun's focused completely on Hajin, Jiyeon grabs a stick behind him. The panel pacing here is incredible, because Sejun doesn't even notice the attack coming. Hajin does. Even hurt, exhausted, and terrified, she sees Jiyeon about to swing at Sejun's head. And for the first time in the entire series, Hajin moves first to protect him. She throws one desperate punch straight into Jiyeon's chin, and it lands perfectly. Jiyeon drops instantly. No dramatic combo, no anime power-up, just pure instinct. That moment hits so hard because it mirrors their childhood flashback perfectly. Young Sejun protected isolated Hajin. Now present-day Hajin protects vulnerable Sejun the second his guard drops around her. The emotional symmetry there is honestly amazing. Then things get even darker, because the underground side gets footage of the entire attack and starts laughing about it. Not concern, not shock, entertainment, views, content. That's the moment the story fully stops feeling like random underground fights and starts feeling like organized exploitation. These people are monetizing trauma. They're turning emotional breakdowns into spectator events. And while they're reviewing footage, director Kim's side starts investigating Jason too. That's when another huge reveal drops. There are almost no usable records on him. No normal background trail, no proper history, no military files, nothing. The underground side realizes Jason might not even legally exist the way a normal person does anymore. And the way director Kim reacts is important. He's not scared. He's interested. Like Jason just became the most valuable mystery in the room. The final chapter slows down again at the gym, but the tension never really leaves. Sejun asks Jason directly how somebody's supposed to beat a wrestler and a jiu-jitsu master at the same time. That question alone shows how much Sejun's changed. Earlier, Sejun solved everything emotionally. Now he's thinking tactically, studying matchups, looking for answers before charging forward. And Jason's expression afterward says enough by itself. Because Sang-soo isn't just another obstacle. He's the next wall waiting in front of Sejun. Stronger, more technical, more experienced. And somewhere behind all of it, the underground organization is still watching everything unfold like this is all part of some sick experiment. Sejun was about to fight the strongest opponent he'd faced so far, and Jason's first lesson was basically, take your shirt off. The chapter opens with Jason trying to explain no-gi jiu-jitsu, and the entire scene feels ridiculous for about 10 seconds before you realize he's being completely serious. He strips down and starts demonstrating how much harder grappling becomes once there's nothing to grab onto. No sleeves, no collar, no clean control. Just sweat, weight, balance, and raw body pressure. And honestly, it's one of the smartest training scenes in the series, because Jason isn't teaching Sejun flashy techniques. He's teaching him survival. Real fights aren't clean. People don't politely stand still while you grant perfect submissions, especially not somebody like Sang-soo. Jason keeps emphasizing the same thing over and over. If Sang-soo gets close, it's bad. That pressure hangs over the whole chapter, because even before the fight starts, everyone already understands Sejun's at a physical disadvantage. Then the story cuts back to Sang-soo and Jiyeon, and things are getting ugly between them too. Jiyeon confronts him after getting beaten up earlier, trying to spin the story emotionally so Sang-soo stays on her side. She claims Sejun attacked her, that everything happening is because of him, but Sang-soo's reaction is interesting, because for the first time, he doesn't instantly believe her. He just stares at her injuries quietly, thinking, and that hesitation completely changes Jiyeon's expression, because deep down, she already knows she's losing control over him. That relationship was always built on manipulation, guilt, and emotional dependence. The second Sang-soo starts questioning her, the entire thing starts cracking apart. So instead of begging him to stay, Jion suddenly flicks directions and breaks up with him herself. The scene feels cold, impulsive, almost defensive, like she'd rather destroy the relationship herself than risk losing power inside it. And honestly, that makes her even more dangerous. The next chapter shifts back toward the investigation side of the story. And Detective Na is still obsessing over the underground case, even while everyone around him wants him to let it go. His superiors are tired of hearing about theories and missing pieces. They want evidence, real evidence. Then a package finally arrives. Information about the suspicious car, the fake plate, the apartment connection, Jion, everything. And what's interesting here is the tone. The evidence doesn't feel official. It feels surgical. Like somebody competent gathered exactly what Detective Na needed without exposing themselves, which fits Jason perfectly. Because while Sejun's learning how to fight, Jason's quietly dismantling pieces of the underground operation from the shadows. Then the story introduces Lee Young-ju, and she's only around briefly, but her scenes matter because they showed Jion's cruelty wasn't isolated to Hajin. Young-ju's terrified, completely terrified. She thanks them for deleting Jion's videos and evidence, but even after that, she still says she can't go back to school because Jion threatened to kill her. That line says everything about Jion's reputation. People aren't scared of her because she's physically unbeatable. They're scared because she humiliates people emotionally and records their suffering like it's entertainment. At the same time, another problem is already growing in the background. Young-gon. That psycho's still lurking around Hajin, still obsessed, still unstable, and now he's planning to target her directly through the academy bathroom just to get closer to Sejun. Things were getting worse fast. The chapter cuts to Sejun waiting outside Hajin's academy in the rain, and this scene's quieter than the others, but it says a lot about him. He's standing there soaked, exhausted, bruised from everything that already happened, and the thing he's worried about most is whether Hajin will get upset seeing him drenched in rain. That's who Sejun is underneath all the violence. Then Sang-soo finally appears. No dramatic entrance, no screaming. He just walks up calmly and asks if they can talk. And honestly, that feels more dangerous than somebody charging in angry. The next chapter is basically the emotional collision everybody saw coming. Sang-soo asks Sejun directly if he really hit Jion and knocked her tooth out. And Sejun doesn't dodge the conversation. He explains exactly what happened, how Jion manipulated people, bullied others, dragged Hajin into this mess. And one of the strongest lines in the chapter comes when Sejun talks about invisible damage. Because from Sang-soo's perspective, Jion only has visible injuries. But Sejun points out that emotional damage doesn't disappear just because you can't see bruises. Fear stays with people. Anxiety stays with people. Victims keep reliving that shit long after the fight ends. Sang-soo listens to all of it, and you can tell part of him knows Sejun's telling the truth. But he's still angry, still emotional, still tied to Jion, no matter how toxic everything became. So eventually the conversation stops mattering, and the fight starts. Right away, Sejun uses Jason's lessons. He grabs the umbrella and keeps Sang-soo at range instead of trying to fight fair. And honestly, it looks annoying as hell. Sang-soo keeps trying to close distance, while Sejun pokes, interrupts, and attacks the chin every time he gets an opening. But there's a reason Sejun's fighting this way. If Sang-soo gets his hands on him cleanly, it's over. That tension makes every exchange feel dangerous. Sang-soo starts getting irritated because Sejun refuses to stand still and trade power shots like an idiot. Then the fight suddenly changes pace when Sang-soo finally catches him. The second he gets proper contact, the difference in physical strength becomes obvious immediately. Sejun gets dragged around hard, controlled, smothered, and Sang-soo calmly admits he hasn't even been serious yet. That moment lands because up until now, Sejun looked relatively in control. Now the audience realizes Sang-soo's been testing him too. Then Sejun smirks and admits he's also been holding something back. The fight escalates instantly after that. No more testing, no more conversations. Sang-soo starts throwing real punches, and Sejun quickly realizes something terrifying. This guy can strike too. Earlier, Sejun was treating him like just a grappler. That mistake disappears immediately. Even blocked punches hurt. Sang-soo's raw strength is ridiculous. There's a brutal sequence where Sejun tries provoking him by insulting his muscles and calling his punches sloppy. But all that really does is piss Sang-soo off enough to pressure even harder. And somewhere during the chaos, Sejun injures his own arm badly. The impact looks nasty, his muscles tense up instantly, and his expression changes for half a second because he realizes something's wrong. But he keeps fighting anyway. That's what makes this fight feel so grounded. Nobody suddenly unlocks hidden power. Sejun's body is literally breaking down, while he's still trying to survive. At one point, Jiyeon even tells Sang-soo to stop. She claims she already got revenge, that everything's gone far enough, but Sang-soo ignores her completely. And honestly, I think this is where his character starts changing. Because this fight stops being about Jiyeon, it becomes personal pride, pain, frustration, the need to prove something. Then the asphalt becomes important. Jason warned Sejun earlier that real fights aren't safe. No mats, no clean falls, and now every takedown attempt feels terrifying because one bad slam onto concrete could permanently mess somebody up. Sejun's injured arm keeps getting worse, while Sang-soo pressures forward relentlessly. But mentally, Sejun's somewhere else entirely now. He starts thinking about victims living with fear every day after violence changes their lives. How people keep carrying anxiety long after everybody else moves on. And that mindset pushes him forward, even while his arm's barely functioning anymore. Then the final exchange hits. Sang-soo charges in again, trying to overpower him physically. Sejun times it perfectly, uses Sang-soo's momentum against him, and slams him straight into the asphalt hard enough to knock him unconscious. The silence afterward is important. No cheering, no dramatic celebration, just exhaustion. Because this doesn't feel like Sejun becoming invincible. It feels like another brutal fight where he damaged himself just to stop somebody else before things got worse. And in the background, Young-gon's still out there, Director Kim's still watching, the underground organization still turning people into weapons. Which means even after surviving Sang-soo, Sejun was already being pulled towards something even darker. Sejun technically won the fight against Sang-soo, but the guy still slammed him so hard, Sejun ended up in the damn hospital. That's how brutal this fight actually was. The next chapter opens with Sang-soo waking up at the dojo, confused after getting knocked unconscious on the asphalt. And honestly, the reactions around him say everything. Nobody's celebrating. Nobody's acting like Sejun dominated him. They're looking at Sang-soo like he's a monster for still being functional after a slam like that. And at the same time, Sejun's the one hospitalized because his own arm got wrecked during the fight. That detail matters a lot, because Guard Pass never lets Sejun feel invincible for long. Every win costs him something. The mood lightens for a second when Dohyun starts clowning on Sang-soo over Jiyeon breaking up with him. But Sang-soo's reaction is interesting. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't start screaming about revenge. He just quietly says he still wants to find her. Because even after everything, part of him still thinks she can be saved. That's what keeps Sang-soo feeling human compared to most underground fighters. He's violent, dangerous, but emotionally he still wants to believe people can come back from this kind of darkness. The story immediately contrasts that with Jiyeon herself, because while Sang-soo's trying to process the breakup emotionally, Jiyeon's already hiding with Jung-hyeon and planning another move. And honestly, these two together feel pathetic in the worst way possible. Not intimidating, not cool, just desperate people trying to regain control after everything around them started collapsing. Jiyeon starts manipulating Jung-hyeon again almost immediately, feeding his obsession, feeding his fear, feeding that hatred towards Sejun and Hajin. Their plan is nasty too. Steal Hajin's phone, cut her off from Sejun, lure him out alone. It's the kind of plan built by people who can't win direct confrontations anymore. Then Detective Na finally crashes into the situation before they can fully act on it. And the second police pressure becomes real, Jung-hyeon completely loses composure. That's one of the biggest recurring themes in this series. People who love controlling weaker victims completely fall apart once someone stronger corners them. The next chapter opens deep inside that fallout. Jung-hyeon's getting interrogated while Detective Na starts laying evidence out piece by piece. The fake plate, the stalking, the apartment, Jiyeon's videos, the bullying, everything. And the best part is watching Jiyeon's confidence slowly die once she realizes this isn't rumor anymore. The evidence is real. Original files, cloud backups, statements. This could actually destroy her life permanently. Her expressions during these panels are great too, because for the first time she looks genuinely scared, instead of manipulative. Jung-hyeon tried pulling the same victim routine again, talking about the crazy psychopath with the axe, meaning Jason. but Detective Na keeps pushing harder until Jung-hyeon accidentally reacts to Director Kim's name. That tiny slip changes everything, because now Detective Na knows there's somebody bigger hiding behind all this chaos. And while Jian and Jung-hyeon are panicking under police pressure, the underground side barely cares anymore. Director Kim's people straight up treat them like disposable trash, used assets, failed experiments, no rescue plan, no loyalty, no sympathy. The focus already shifted towards something much more dangerous. Jason. Back at the gym, Sejun returns even though his arm's still messed up from the Sang-soo fight, and Jason shuts him down immediately. No training, no arguments, nothing. Jason tells him his body's already reaching its limit, and if he keeps forcing fights like this, eventually something's going to stop healing correctly. That warning lands harder because Jason's not emotional when he says it. He sounds experienced, like somebody who's already watched strong people destroy themselves this exact way before. Then the story quietly transitions into one of the most important Jason scenes so far. He visits a grave alone. No audience, no dramatic narration, just silence, rain, flowers, and Jason speaking softly in English to someone named Haley. The atmosphere here feels heavy immediately, because this is the first time Jason stops feeling untouchable. For once, he doesn't feel like the calm veteran mentor. He feels tired, like there's a part of his life he never escaped from. And right when the chapter reaches its quietest emotional point, the underground side sends Young-gon after him. Not to negotiate, not to scare him, to test him. The next chapter opens at the graveyard and things get ugly immediately. The men approaching Jason clearly expect some older guy they can intimidate. Huge mistake. Jason's expression changes the second they interrupt the grave visit. Not explosive rage, not panic, just this cold shift where you realize they crossed a line they really shouldn't have crossed. Then Jason says something genuinely terrifying. He tells them he wants to kill them. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally tear them apart. And the scariest part is how calm he sounds saying it. The fight explodes after that. Jason starts dismantling the goons almost effortlessly. Efficient strikes, clean movement, no wasted motion at all. This isn't some teenager street fighting anymore. This feels military, professional. The attackers realize way too late that this man is operating on a completely different level. Then Young-gon finally steps forward, and honestly the atmosphere changes immediately, because something's wrong with him. His eyes are unfocused. His movements feel delayed but violent. He keeps muttering the same things over and over. Long hair. Must kill. Like somebody programmed instructions directly into his brain. And now the underground organization finally reveals what they've really been doing to him. Drugs, chemical enhancement, pain suppression. They didn't turn him into a superhero. They turned him into a weapon that barely reacts normally anymore. Jason starts beating him hard, but Young-gon just keeps moving. The hits land, the damage is real, but the normal fear response never appears. That's what makes this fight uncomfortable. Young-gon doesn't feel like a fighter anymore. He feels like somebody whose humanity's getting erased piece by piece. Then Jason hears the confirmation he didn't want. Young-gon admits he's the one who hurt Hajin, the one who gave her the black eye. And the second Hajin gets mentioned, the emotional atmosphere shifts completely. Because now this isn't just another underground experiment. This is directly connected to Sejun, to the reason Sejun keeps throwing himself deeper into violence every chapter. Jason realizes normal pain compliance isn't going to stop Young-gon, so his mentality changes immediately. If pain doesn't work, mechanical damage will, and the way Jason explains it is brutal. Break the joints. Every finger, every toe, every limb necessary to stop him moving. No dramatic speeches, no saving him, just cold, tactical violence from somebody who already understands how dangerous chemically altered fighters can become. The chapter ends with Jason preparing to completely dismantle Young-gon physically, while the underground organization keeps watching everything from the shadows. And honestly, that's what makes this arc feel so dangerous now. Earlier fights were emotional, personal, messy, but now the underground side is experimenting on people, enhancing them, studying them, turning broken fighters into controllable weapons. And Sejun was already too deep inside it to walk away anymore. Jason finally stopped holding back, and the first thing he decided to break was Young-gon's joints. Not his pride, not his confidence, his actual fucking body. The chapter opens right where the graveyard fight left off, and the atmosphere feels completely different now because Jason already realized something terrifying. Young-gon doesn't react to pain normally anymore. The punches land, the damage is real, but the guy just keeps moving like his body forgot how to stop. So Jason changes tactics immediately. No more clean strikes, no more testing. He starts attacking the knees, elbows, fingers, shoulders, every mechanical point that physically forces a human body to fail, whether they feel pain or not. And honestly, the way the panels are framed here makes Jason feel less like a fighter and more like a professional problem solver. Cold, efficient, almost surgical. Young-gon keeps charging forward anyway, muttering the same broken phrases over and over while his body's literally getting dismantled piece by piece. That's what makes him scary. Not strength, not technique. The fact somebody turned him into a weapon too damaged to understand when he's already losing. Then Jason finally shifts his attention toward the underground handler watching all this happen, and the guy immediately folds. Earlier he was acting confident because Young-gon was the monster in front of him. Now Jason's looking directly at him, and suddenly all that confidence disappears. Jason calls him out instantly too, not as some elite criminal mastermind, just another mercenary dog helping predators hurt people for money. And before things can escalate even further, a black-haired woman suddenly steps into the scene. The mood changes immediately, not because she's loud, because she's calm. The second she appears, even Jason's posture shifts slightly, like this is somebody from a world he already knows very well. No introductions, no long explanations, just quiet recognition between two people who clearly survived the same kind of violent life. The underground side notices it too, because the second she moves, it's obvious she's trained. Not street fight trained, professional. Her attacks are fast, sharp, controlled. Everything about her movement feels efficient instead of emotional. Young-gon tries pushing through her attacks the same way he did against Jason, but she adapts immediately and starts targeting him differently too. That's when the underground side finally realizes something bad. Jason wasn't some random retired fighter, and he definitely wasn't working alone. The next chapter expands on that feeling hard. People connected to Jason start talking about him in fragments, and none of it sounds normal. Nobody talks about him like an ordinary gym owner. They talk like they're discussing somebody with history, operations, violence, things buried deep enough normal people aren't supposed to know about. The black-haired woman clearly has that same background too. You can feel it in every conversation between them. No emotional oversharing, no dramatic reunion. Just two people who already understand each other without needing explanations. Back at the graveyard, the fight keeps escalating while Young-gon's body starts looking worse and worse. Cuts, bruises, damaged joints. But he still keeps getting up. The drug completely destroyed his normal survival instincts. And honestly, that makes the entire underground organization feel darker than ever before. Because they're not just organizing illegal fights anymore. They're chemically reshaping people into disposable attack dogs. Jason and the woman start discussing the drugs afterward, and Jason's focus becomes very clear. He doesn't just want Young-gon anymore. He wants whoever created this situation, whoever supplied the drugs, whoever decided turning damaged people into weapons was profitable. Then the story pivots hard emotionally. The action slows down, the lighting softens, and we finally start learning about Jung-hyeon. This batch honestly handles his backstory really well, because it doesn't try making him some hidden badass from childhood. He was lonely, awkward, weak, the kind of kid people ignore until they decide he's an easy target. The school scenes feel painfully realistic too. Kids mocking him, shoving him around, making him feel invisible. And the black background narration around these moments makes everything feel heavier because Jung-hyeon isn't angry yet. Mostly just embarrassed, ashamed, tired of feeling small. There's one really important visual detail running through these chapters too. Even while getting beaten up, Jung-hyeon keeps watching how people move. Balance, weight shifting, positioning. Without realizing it, he's already starting to study fighting through survival instinct alone. And honestly, that fits Guard Pass perfectly. A lot of the strongest emotional moments in this series come from people trying to stop feeling helpless. Then Hajin enters the flashback, and this part matters more emotionally than physically. Because Hajin doesn't save Jung-hyeon with violence. She helps him feel human again. She talks to him normally, treats him like he belongs somewhere. And later, when he joins the dojo, that acceptance becomes one of the reasons he stays loyal to Sejun's side. The dojo isn't just where people learn to fight. For a lot of them, it's the first place they stopped feeling alone. The story snaps back into present danger right after that, because now Jung-hyeon's being targeted specifically for being connected to Sejun in the dojo. Ji-yeon shows up again alongside the red-haired kickboxer from earlier, and the atmosphere immediately feels wrong, predatory, like they intentionally picked somebody weaker to pressure instead of confronting Sejun directly. And honestly, that escalation makes the underground side feel much more dangerous now. Earlier, the fights were personal. Now they're strategic. They're targeting allies, friends, emotionally vulnerable people around Sejun. The confrontation itself builds slowly too. Jian keeps talking down to Jung-hyeon like he's still the same scared kid from before, while the kickboxer stands there acting tough beside her. But the important part is Jung-hyeon's reaction. He's scared. You can see it, but he's not collapsing anymore. That's the growth. Not becoming fearless, standing there anyway even while fear's still inside him. The chapter ends right before the violence fully explodes, using the tension perfectly. Jian's side thinks they're cornering another weak dojo member, but after everything that's happened, they're walking into a group that's slowly learning how to fight back together. And somewhere above all of it, the underground organization keeps watching people destroy themselves for profit, while Jason's past starts crawling back into the story, piece by piece. Which honestly feels even more dangerous than the fights themselves. The underground organization finally started turning ordinary bullies into monsters, and the scariest part is Sejun barely even looks surprised anymore. The chapter opens with Jung-hyeon already getting pressured hard by the red-haired kickboxer tied to Jian, and right away you can feel how different this fight is compared to earlier arcs. Jung-hyeon's scared, not anime fake scared, actually scared. His posture's tight, his breathing's uneven, and the kickboxer keeps threatening the people around him, especially Hajin, because he knows that's where the real pressure lands. But even while terrified, Jung-hyeon doesn't collapse anymore. That's the growth. A few months ago, this guy would have frozen completely. Now he's thinking while panicking, trying ugly counters, targeting openings, using leverage instead of strength. Nothing about his fighting looks clean or flashy, but honestly, that makes it feel way more real. He's surviving, not styling on people. The kickboxer keeps overwhelming him physically, but Jung-hyeon buys just enough time for Sejun's side to arrive. And the reactions there matter a lot. Nobody treats Jung-hyeon like a burden. Nobody laughs at him for struggling. They immediately focus on whether he's okay. That emotional shift leads directly into the flashback section. And honestly, these chapters handle Jung-hyeon's past way better than most series would. Because the dojo wasn't instantly some magical happy place for him. At first it looked like one. People helped him tie his belt, talked to him casually, made him feel included. For a little while, Jung-hyeon actually thought he finally found somewhere he belonged. Then one bad sparring incident changed everything. Rumors spread. People started treating him differently, whispering behind his back, acting like he didn't belong there anymore. And the visual framing here hurts, because Jung-hyeon immediately starts shrinking back into himself, shoulders lowered, avoiding eye contact, standing alone, while everyone else groups together. It's the exact same isolation he already lived through at school. Then Hajin walks over and talks to him normally. That's it. No giant speech, no dramatic rescue. She just treats him like a human being. And honestly, that tiny moment changes his life. That's one of the strongest things about Hajin as a character. She doesn't overpower people physically. She changes them emotionally. The flashback keeps escalating after that, when the bullying inside the dojo gets worse, and eventually Jason steps in. And when Jason decides somebody crossed the line, things get ugly fast. He violently shuts the bully down immediately. No hesitation, no fake diplomacy, just instant punishment. The aftermath causes huge problems for the dojo too. Rumors spread outside the gym. People start acting like Jason attacked someone for no reason, and the dojo owner starts getting pressured financially because of it. But then Hajin snaps. And honestly, this might be one of her strongest moments in the entire batch. She stands up publicly and calls out everybody trying to twist the story while pretending they care about peace. The dojo owner backs her too. He makes it completely clear that bullying and isolating weaker students won't be tolerated in his gym. And the craziest part? Jason never even tries defending himself emotionally afterward. He just quietly accepts the consequences and starts working delivery jobs to help cover the financial damage. That detail says everything about him. No self-pity, no excuses, just responsibility. Jung-hyeon apologizes over and over, blaming himself for the trouble, but the dojo owner shuts that down immediately. None of this was his fault. That line matters because for probably the first time in his life, an adult actually protected him instead of abandoning him. The story cuts back into the present after that, and things start getting darker again immediately. Director Kim's side starts discussing Sejun almost like he's a science project now. They're analyzing his recovery, his lower body development, his stamina growth, the way he adapted after fighting Sang-soo. And honestly, that atmosphere feels creepy as hell, because Sejun's not just fighting underground opponents anymore. He's being studied, watched, measured. Even Sang-soo starts admitting Sejun's growth is getting dangerous. And what's interesting is Sang-soo's emotional position keeps changing too. He still cares about Ji-yeon. That attachment hasn't disappeared, but now he also understands Director Kim and Chairman Han are the real monsters behind everything. The people actually engineering all this violence. That realization slowly starts pulling Sang-soo closer towards Sejun's side. Then, the next emotional punch lands through Dohyun. The chapter shifts backward a few months and finally reveals how trapped he actually was inside the underground system. Dohyun tried walking away, tried cutting ties, and Director Kim's side immediately reminded him that people like them don't just quit. The threats start getting personal fast too, not against Dohyun directly, against his mother, her restaurant job, her reputation, the fact she still believes her son can become a decent person. That's what really crushes Dohyun emotionally, not fear for himself, fear that his mother might finally see the ugliest parts of him. And honestly, the series handles Dohyun really carefully here. It never pretends he was innocent. He admits he did awful things, collected money, enabled violence, helped create misery for weaker kids. But he also genuinely hates who he became. That conflict is what makes him feel human instead of just redeemed. Then Sejun and Dohyun visit his mother together, and the atmosphere becomes painfully warm compared to everything else happening. She cooks for them, worries about Dohyun constantly, even asks Sejun quietly if her son can still live a normal life after everything he did. That question hits hard, because she already knows the answer might be ugly. Sejun's response is one of his most mature moments so far too. He doesn't lie, doesn't say Dohyun was secretly a good person all along. He just says people can still move forward if they admit what they've done and keep trying to change. That's probably the closest thing to hope this arc gives anybody. Then things start spiraling again. Sang-soo arrives at the gym looking emotionally wrecked and reveals Ji-yeon got beaten badly after getting released through Chairman Han and Director Kim's connections. That detail changes the atmosphere immediately, because now even the people working under the underground organization are getting destroyed by it too. Sang-soo starts openly talking about Chairman Han like he's a monster. Not a boss, not a fighter, a monster. And for the first time, Sejun's side and Sang-soo's side are starting to overlap emotionally. Not friendship yet, but shared hatred. Then the underground organization fully reveals what they're doing to Young-gon. The drug experiments become way clearer here. A clean punch lands directly on him during testing, and his body barely reacts properly. No neural pain response, no hesitation, no survival instinct. Just this broken, chemically altered endurance. And honestly, that's what makes Young-gon terrifying. Not because he's superhuman, because somebody deliberately stripped away the parts of him that make humans stop fighting before they destroy themselves. Then Young-gon finally walks directly up to Sejun at school, and this scene feels heavy immediately because Sejun recognizes exactly what he's looking at now. Not just a violent guy, a manufactured weapon. Young-gon mocks Sejun's life, his relationships, the idea that he thought things could go back to normal after everything that happened. The pressure keeps building from there until chapter 60 finally brings everything full circle. An old-school bully approaches Sejun, trying to reassert the same hierarchy that existed back in chapter 1. Only now things are completely different. This guy isn't just another school thug anymore either. He's been swallowed into the underground system too. Bulked up, drug-enhanced, obsessed with revenge. And worst of all, he's directly connected to the moment Hajin got dragged into the underground fights in the first place. That's what makes this confrontation feel so important. This isn't random violence. It's the past coming back one last time. The bully keeps talking like the old hierarchy still matters. Who controls the school? Who fears who? Who becomes leader after Dohyun graduates? And Sejun barely even reacts anymore. That calmness is honestly scarier than rage. He tells the guy he doesn't care what idiots do to each other, but the second innocent people get dragged into it, he stops tolerating it. Then the fight starts, and right away the difference in Sejun is obvious. The bully's bigger, stronger than before, chemically enhanced, but Sejun's movement is completely different now too. Patient, controlled, sharp. The panels focus heavily on eyes and posture during this fight because the psychological gap matters more than raw power. The bully's still emotional, still trying to overwhelm through intimidation. Sejun's reading him, waiting, punishing mistakes instantly. That's the real evolution. Chapter 1, Sejun fought like somebody drowning. Chapter 60, Sejun fights like somebody who understands violence now. And honestly, that's terrifying. The bully realizes it too. Every reckless attack gets countered harder. Every emotional outburst creates another opening. Sejun starts using grappling pressure, lower body positioning, and timing instead of just charging forward emotionally like he used to. Then Hajin gets mentioned again, and for 1 second the old anger flashes back across Sejun's face. But this time, he doesn't lose control. He gets colder. That difference is what defines this entire arc. The underground world didn't turn Sejun emotionless. It turned him disciplined, more dangerous, more patient. And by the end of the fight, it becomes painfully obvious that the boy from Chapter 1 is basically gone now. Not because Sejun became evil, because organized violence, manipulation, underground fighting, chemically altered monsters, and constant pressure forced him to evolve into somebody capable of surviving inside that world. And somewhere above all of it, Director Kim and Chairman Han are still watching, still studying, still preparing the next nightmare. Because for them, Sejun stopped being a student a long time ago. Now he's just another variable inside the underground system. And honestly, that's the scariest part about this entire arc. Not the underground drugs, not the dark web fight streams, not even the monsters Director Kim keeps creating. It's the fact Sejun survived all of it and adapted. The terrified kid who used to charge forward blindly whenever Hajin got hurt is gone now. In his place is somebody calmer, more tactical, more disciplined. Somebody who understands exactly how ugly violence can become and still keeps walking deeper into it anyway. Meanwhile, Director Kim and Chairman Han are still watching everything from above, like this is all one giant experiment. Young-gon's becoming less human every chapter. The underground organization keeps escalating, and now even Sejun's old enemies are coming back stronger, drugged up, and desperate for revenge. Which means this wasn't the end of the nightmare. It was just the point where Sejun finally became dangerous enough to survive inside it.